Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. A big welcome to you for today's webinar on ISWA's Road to COP, Opportunities and Successes of Waste and Resource Management for Climate Change Mitigation. For those of you who don't know ISWA, ISWA is the International Solid Waste Association, or ISWA for short, where I work. It's a global, independent, non-profit association with a mission to promote sustainable and professional waste management while also advocating for a transition to a circular economy. We've got members from over 100 countries. You're going to actually hear from some of them today. And these members include individuals, organizations, as well as companies from all around the world. And so I'm very honored to be moderating today's session with such a great lineup of speakers, showcasing the best of ISWA's network. What we want to say is that waste is not just a byproduct of human activity. It is a resource that, if is managed very correctly, can drive economic growth, it can reduce environmental harm, and it can also support a more sustainable and a circular economy. That's our pitch to everybody when we go to any of these COPs. So today we're not here just to discuss challenges. We're actually going to be also discussing solutions, and we'll hear from our experts on what they are doing to push the needle forward. We know that the world is facing extremely complex environmental challenges, but one thing for us is very clear, that sound waste and resource management is going to play a critical part, and it's going to be a critical part of the solution as well. So whether it's by reducing methane from landfills or enhancing circular economy practices, it could be improving recycling and composting, it could be talking about scaling up of waste to energy initiatives. We have the tools to make significant impact, and that's our pitch again today, as well as at all the COPs that we go to. So today's discussion is going to build upon the momentum that we've established since COP28, when ISWA was at Dubai COP with the first Waste and Resources Pavilion, and where ISWA's partners successfully highlighted the role of waste management in global climate strategies. So we're going to build on the momentum from COP28 and then COP29 in Baku. And so as we look ahead to COP30, that's going to take place in Belém in Brazil, it's time for us to turn commitments into action. So how can we work together to scale up these best practices? How do we ensure that waste management is embedded into NDCs or national climate strategies? So these are some of the questions that we're going to explore today in the webinar. And so what's going to happen is that we have an exciting lineup of speakers, as you can see on the screen, who are going to share real world solutions. And they're going to talk about what their organizations are doing for moving this forward. So each speaker is going to have about 5 minutes to deliver a brief presentation of the work that they are doing and their organization is doing, followed by an engaging panel discussion. And this is where I'm going to invite you to be interactive, to ask questions, and to actually contribute with your insights as well in the message box. And my colleagues and I are going to collect all these messages and questions, and we will put them towards the question and answer session at the end. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Mr. James Law. He's the president of our association. He's also the chair of our closing dump sites task force. And James has been part of ISWA for a very long time. He has extensive experience in landfill management and project implementation globally. And he advocates for the ending of open dumping and open burning while transitioning to more sustainable waste management solutions. So James, the floor is yours. I will stop sharing my screen and give the floor to you.
Thank you, Aditi. It's my pleasure to be here today to discuss this very important topic that we face worldwide regarding relating to climate change, as well as dump site closure and so on. And I remember back in 2017, 2018, when we first initiated this global closing dump site initiative, and it is at that time it was is such a great idea. But then we also find out that just the working group on landfill alone, we cannot do much. We must mobilize, our entire network and our memberships globally in order to make it a more successful impact to the world. And unfortunately, during 2020, as you know, we had the pandemic, so the momentum kind of slowed down. But nevertheless, the closing dump site initiative is still in the forefront of ISWA's agendas. And with that, I would like to say that in all respects, collaboration and cooperation among all the stakeholders is very important for such a such an initiative to be successful and impactful. Um, last at the World Congress at ISWA in Cape Town, and we are very we were very happy to hear that our Brazilian national member Abrama is very ambitious to jumpstart a project which related to closing dump site initiative. They basically identify about 3,000 dump sites located along their coastal line areas that is urgently need to be closing it. So I'm hoping that this is sort of a good way to lead into COP30 because COP30 is going to be in Brazil. So I'm kind of looking forward to have a deeper working relationship to assist any way we can. And with that, I think my experience with the last two COPs is a very good and personal one because I see the potentials and we all say that landfill or dump sites operation is contribute very much to most of the methane emission worldwide. So I think it is a very important topic we need to address, and hopefully, it somehow we can relate that to each nation's climate policies to have a major input in order to have this uh, issue addressed. So with that, I'd like to turn back to Aditi.
Thanks a lot, James, for setting the scene for us. I would now invite Peter Samois, the chair of ISWA's Working Group on Climate Change and Waste Management, which focuses on the intersection of waste, resource efficiency, as well as climate action. Peter is going to tell us a little bit about the working group's activities and how you can join us. Peter, the floor is yours.
Okay, yes, thank you, Aditi. I have some slides prepared. I will share them. Let me see. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes. Let's immediately go to the next slide. I only have a couple of minutes for this introduction. Sorry, I have to go one back. Yes, working group on climate change. First, let me start by giving a little bit wider introduction of who I am. I'm Peter Samois. I'm based in Amsterdam, and I work for a company who does waste to energy projects worldwide. And furthermore, I also am working for the Dutch Waste Management Association. Especially on the CCUS projects, those all climate-related projects. When you talk about climate change, what we do in our working group, you can mainly see that it has to do with all kinds of waste management activities. Climate change is a topic within every working group. So yeah, that is also how ISWA is organized. We have 10 working groups, and most of these working groups are specialized on one aspect within waste management. But what you can see is that within our working group, that's why it's called climate change and waste management. Yeah, we focus on the climate aspects of all these waste management activities. Zooming in on our working group, I think that if we talk about members, I think that we are now well above 100 members, coming from all parts of the world. And what's also interesting in our working group is that, the background of our members is very diverse. We've got companies, we've got waste management associations, research institutes, public organizations, all kinds of people who want to know, who want to share, who want to learn something about climate change in relation with waste management. And what we can see, and that's also what we, of course, see worldwide, especially when you talk about climate and waste, is that the attention for waste management in the climate discussion is growing. And we can also see that in our working group. It's a fast-growing working group. Every month we have new members coming in, so it is high on the agenda. So what do we do as a working group? We share knowledge, of course, very important. Also, we share data. There is a lot of data available within ISWA, but also with coming from our partners. We share best practices. We also work together on publications with partners of ISWA. The Global Waste Management Outlook is an example, but also recently we worked with Corinne together with the French Solid Waste Partnership to work on a publication, Waste Management to Address the Climate Crisis, that Corinne will probably show later. What we further do is facilitating multi-stakeholder dialogues and collaboration. ISWA works closely together with a lot of organizations. So we are also more or less the bridge between members and these organizations and give the opportunity to work together on that. And within ISWA, we also work together with the other working groups. As I already mentioned, the working groups are working on the specific waste management items. And what I said, in all these projects, climate is, if they make a publication, is always one of the chapters or mentioned a lot of times in these publications. So that's where we can work together. And of course, you can find us at several events. We organize webinars ourselves. We have our own meetings. But we also contribute to events from members or partners. Of course, the big ISWA Congress, we are present. We have our own program there. And especially for this webinar, we also represent ISWA at COP. We are responsible for making an attractive program at the pavilion. I'll show you some examples later. Not only that, we're not only responsible for the program in our pavilion, but we also contribute to other events at COP. And of course, we are responsible also to coordinate the ISWA's Declaration of Climate Change. It's not a document that is prepared once. This document will be updated every year so that we have an actual document with the key messages at COP. Some examples. Here you see the first presence, or at least that we were really visible at the first COP. That was in Egypt, COP 27. I'm going quite fast through this. What Aditi already mentioned, the first waste and resource pavilion ever from ISWA, a huge success at the COP in Dubai. And last year in November, we were also in Baku. And what we can see during these COPs is that the attention for waste is growing. And if we zoom in on Baku, there you see that the COP presidency issued a declaration on reducing methane from organic waste. So that is on the highest podium. So we are very happy that these topics are coming on the agenda. What I mentioned, the declaration, a very important document within ISWA, because this is a document that is drafted from our working group together with other bodies within ISWA. And this is what we also, before the COP, share with our members, the national members, to ask them, do you acknowledge this statement, and can we take this to the next COP? So it is a wide a document that gives us also the direction for each COP. I want to stop here with my introduction of the working group. I want to hand over to the next speaker, Aditi.
Thank you so much, Peter, for giving that introduction. And I hope some of you that are participating in today's webinar will join us. I would now like to welcome Corinne Tromsdorff, who is the Executive Director of the French Solid Waste Partnership, which is ISWA's national member in France. Corinne is an expert in waste governance and international collaboration, and she specializes in developing waste management frameworks and fostering multi-stakeholder cooperation to drive sustainable waste solutions. The floor is yours, Corinne.
Thank you very much, Aditi. I'll be sharing a few slides just to help support my speech. So I'm Corinne Tromsdorff, the Executive Director of the French Solid Waste Partnership, and I'd like to explain just in a few words what the partnership is about. We are a fairly recent, about 2 years old, multiplayer platform. We regroup all the stakeholders that have something to do with waste management in France to carry an advocacy at international level. So our mission is really to coordinate and amplify the voice of French stakeholders at international level. And the reason why we wanted to have this partnership is really because stakeholders felt that their voice was not heard at international level, that waste management was not being raised as a priority, and they felt that together they could be stronger at carrying that voice at the highest level. And so the way we work is that we gather a consensual vision of all our members, and then we also partner ourselves with other international organizations, other national organizations, so that together with all these other international partners, we can carry a strong voice from the waste management sector at international level. Now, enough about who the French Solid Waste Partnership is, and just a few words on our experience of COP29. So we had supported ISWA already in Dubai at COP28, and COP29 we could not attend, but we still supported ISWA, and we seized this opportunity to actually launch this publication that was also mentioned by Peter, in which many ISWA members had contributed as well. It's articulated in 5 chapters, but I don't want to get into the details here. You have that little QR code that you can scan to download it and read it yourself. I want to highlight 2 points that have been big wins at COP29. The first one is the presidency declaration on reducing methane from organic wastes. This actually in chapter 3 of this publication, where we address technical actions to reduce GHG emissions, is one of the main levers we had identified to reduce the methane emissions from organic wastes, along with obviously the importance of prevention of waste generation as one main lever, putting an end to open burning, and improving recycling. And another big win at COP29 was that parties finally agreed on Article 6.4 of the Paris Agreement, which is actually the framework that supports how carbon credits can be traded between countries. And we're hoping it can unlock significant amounts in climate finance that could benefit developing countries. Now, we still need, I think, to really advocate for this climate finance to benefit waste management projects. And that's also a point that's covered under the chapter 5 of this publication, where we address the difficulties for waste management projects to access climate finance. Now, looking forward, we have COP30 coming up. We will again be a partner to ISWA, and we hope many of you also online will decide to become partners, because we think ISWA really needs to be supported in these actions. We have 3 objectives with that COP. We want to continue the main advocacy, which is the need to reduce methane and black carbon emissions by implementing what we call ESM of waste, so environmentally sound management of waste. And by the way, we've put a link here to a video that we've just launched this year that highlights ESM of wastes, but also the mechanisms that support it, because it's easy to say we need to implement waste management, but realizing all of what's needed to make it work is really the crux of success. We're also working on a new publication in which will involve the ISWA working group, and it's called Waste and GHG Emissions Atlas. The idea is to inspire more ambitious NDCs, so nationally determined contributions by countries. And I seized this opportunity to answer the question from Bharat that was in the chat. So countries have to resubmit their NDCs every 5 years. 2025 is the year when they will be resubmitting, and they are expected to propose their first draft of their NDCs by March. However, for many emerging economies, they get a delay granted, so we don't exactly know when they will be submitting their first draft, but then these NDCs will be finalized at COP30. The ambition with that waste and GHG emissions atlas is really to inspire action within by the climate negotiation teams. And a third thing that is not on my slide here that's more recent is also closing the loop with some of what James said earlier. We're exploring a partnership with our sister organization in Brazil, Brema, to work together on that initiative, closing dump sites in targeting specifically most sensitive coastal areas. On this, I will leave the floor for the next person.
Thanks, Corinne, for that comprehensive overview. Very well said, and good shout out for more involvement from people who are online. Next, I'm going to invite Vanessa Fakra. She's the Director of Regulatory Affairs and Market Access at Canadavia Innova. Vanessa is a specialist in waste to energy and regulatory affairs, leading Canadavia Innova's efforts to expand sustainable waste solutions globally. She works closely with governments and institutions to advance circular economy initiatives and low carbon waste management. Over to you, Vanessa. We can't hear you.
Your microphone.
Yes, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, is this okay?
Perfect, yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot to ISWA to organize this panel. It's a real pleasure for me to join today. So I will explain who is Canadavia Innova and what we are doing to mitigate climate change, which technology we can offer to mitigate climate change, and in particular in developing countries, in emerging markets. And And I will end explaining speaking about our experience from Canadevia and Canadevia Innova from COP29 and our goals for COP30. So first of all, about Canadevia Innova. So we are a global vertically integrated green utility. So we are an innovation leader in the waste infrastructure place. We provide technology from anaerobic digestion, wet anaerobic digestion, dry anaerobic digestion, waste to energy, power to gas, electrolyzer, methanation, and carbon capture solution. So on this slide, you can see our vision of the waste management of the future, which would integrate pre-sorting, recycling, AD, and waste to energy. And I wouldn't speak about waste to energy, I would speak about waste to resources, because it's really our motto. Waste shouldn't be the problem. It is a big challenge when it comes to climate change, but waste is resources. And that's why we think our mission is really to create value for communities and to contribute to a future free of wasted waste. So we are based in Zurich. We are around 3,000 employees. We are born from the fusion of a Japanese company, Canadevia Corporation, and a Swiss company, Fonroll. We grew quite fast in the recent years because we were 300 in 2015. Now we have over 1,600 reference, AD, waste to energy, and power to gas. Waste to energy remains our main core business, and it's a bigger part of the cake when it comes to sales. And our historical business is Europe. But we are now expanding to new businesses. So we have quite a few references in MENA with the Dubai plant. And now we have Abu Dhabi and Abu Dhabi project. We have also a big plant in Istanbul. And in the US, we are more developing renewable gas projects. And we also have a reference in Australia. So we are EPC provider, but we are also developers, and we start doing O&M. So in MENA and soon in UK. So that's about the company. And how do our technology can help mitigate climate change? So I will go really fast because I think everybody knows that. So we know, all of us know, that waste is a key issue, and represents a real challenge when we speak about climate change. It is growing. We are, I think, at 2.1 currently. So we can see that the figures from World Bank of 3.4 might be conservative. We might reach even more than that by 2050. Of course, it's due to demography, growth, and urbanization. And we know that 70% of this waste is still landfill, and mostly in unmanaged landfills and dump sites, which are responsible for methane emissions. What maybe not everyone is aware of is that depending on the global warming potential we consider, depending on the period of time we look at, if we convert methane in CO2 equivalents, the impact is not the same. If we look at 20-year horizon, because we all speak of net zero by 2050, if we look at 20-year, methane is 84 more potent than CO2. If we look at 100 years, it's 28 times more potent. So that is to speak about GHG emission. And I think this point is important for the next slide. So, and we know that landfill are not only a source of methane emission, because managed landfill now recover lots of gas, but they are still a source of air, soil, and water. I mean, they occupy land. And wasted dump does not generate any added value. It destroys resources. What I just said is that methane is even more critical than we think. What we have in the figure is that if we look at the total emission, anthropogenic emission of a year, Methane can, if you look at the pie chart on the left, officially methane represents 1/5 of the total emission. But it's totally underestimated because it considers for two reasons. First of all, it considers a 100 years horizon. So if you would consider the impact over 20 years, then it will bring methane to the right chart. So it will bring methane as almost as important as CO2 in terms of anthropogenic emissions. And the second reason why methane is even more critical than what we think is that because methane is difficult to measure. Methane comes from industry, agriculture, waste mostly. And in all these cases, it's dispersed. So it's not easy to measure. And we use model to measure it. And we have recent studies using satellite measure have highlighted the fact that the models and the reporting that brought to this figure I just showed of 10,000 were underreported. Because if we compare with satellite the national reporting with the average satellite emission rate, we can see that it's always underreported. In some cases, we have a ratio of even 48. So just for everybody to know, satellite measure present lots of uncertainties, and you need a really important campaign to reduce the uncertainties. So they cannot be really reliably used to measure, to assess methane emission. But they are a good tool to bring awareness on the underreporting of methane emission when they are reported using models based on assumption. So these two reasons shows that methane is really critical. So based on this constat, on this observation, we really see that methane is a key problem and it's due to organic waste. And we do think that in countries where you have a high humidity in the west, where you have strong agricultural needs, and where you have a really dependent on electricity, especially from low carbon source, because this country do still have a highly carbon intense electricity, the best solution we promote to mitigate climate change is to have a mix of pre-sorting, anaerobic digestion, and waste to energy. Of course, we are aware that these technologies are three often new technologies when we speak of developing countries. So it is difficult to integrate them at the same time. So what we have been, because we just have been identified as preferred bidder to replace Casablanca landfill. And I mean, there is a preconceived idea that waste to energy is not affordable for emerging countries. But at the end of the day, in this country, electricity is a need and it has a price and it makes a business case. And at the end of the day, waste to energy ended in Casablanca case cheaper than a managed landfill solution. And of course, it's easier to put directly waste to energy and to add after pre-sorting and aerobic digestion, because just an example, at COP28 in Dubai, where we have a waste to energy plant, I discussed with Dubai municipality and I told them, okay, that's great, you already tackled your GHG emission putting a waste to energy plant, but the second step is to pre-sort. You cannot put everything in waste to energy plant. And I spoke with the woman in charge of waste management at the municipality, and she was fully aware of that. But she explained that it takes 10 years to change a culture in a country, when it takes 3 years to put a waste to energy. So let's do it step by step. And of course, now they are educating to implement pre-sorting. So we have to find step-by-step way to educate and to mitigate emissions. And I think I spoke already too much, but just for our feedback for COP29, so we were really honored to be a sponsor of ISWA, and to take part to panel discussion with Global Methane Hub in Green Zone. Nevertheless, we were also with our mother company in Blue Zone, and what we conclude, because we were also in COP28 in Dubai, is that in Baku, the Green Zone attracted maybe a lot less people in Green Zone than in Blue Zone, compared to Dubai, where you had lots of students and industry. The Green Zone was more, I think, attracted more people, also because of the infrastructure and the localization in Dubai. So for us, really, the main takeaway from this COP is that for Belém, it would make more sense to be in Blue Zone, because in Blue Zone, even though you have a small bus, or you don't need a huge space to really attract key policy stakeholders, and globally, not only locally. When in Green Zone, mostly you will touch local people, which is already a good step, but it will be not as wide as in terms of impact. So that's our main takeaway. And the second one is that waste to energy and anaerobic digestion are really poorly represented at COP, and there is a real need to increase the representation. And that's all for me. I hand it over to Aditi.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Points well taken. Yes, we will definitely try to be in the Blue Zone this time, though it's not going to be certain. The final speaker for today's webinar is Mr. Malik Kirker, who is the Carbon Projects Director at Suez Climate Solutions. His expertise lies in developing carbon credit mechanisms for waste sector projects, driving climate positive waste management solutions. The floor is yours, Malik.
Thank you, Aditi. I will share my screen. You let me know if you can see anything in terms of presentation. Is that okay for you?
We can see that.
Okay. Okay. So I think I will take a few minutes to present briefly Suez. Suez is a world leader in water and waste management. We offer environmental services to 10 million people across the world and to 70,000 commercial customers. So we are quite big. And we are active in the waste sector, obviously, but we're also seeking to develop projects thanks to carbon finance and to the cooperation mechanism that has been set under the Paris Agreement. We'll have the opportunity to discuss it, I think, during the Q&A. I will take a few minutes now to explain what is the global approach of Suez in terms of tackling the climate issue. Towards the net zero pathway, I believe there are three pillars that must be carried out simultaneously. We have to work on the reduction of emission within our own value chain. We have to work on developing avoided emissions outside our value chain. And finally, which is the pillar C, we have to develop carbon sinks. And Suez is actively pursuing the three pillars at the same time. So I will spend not too much time. I think it's better if we dwell during the Q&A session, but just to give some example of what activities is Suez carrying out on each pillar, I will spend a few minutes now. So under pillar A, it's really how Suez intends to reduce its emission within its own value chain. So the easiest way is to switch whenever we can on our facility from the use of fossil electricity to renewable electricity. And so we will switch in our wastewater treatment plant, in our waste management facility to renewable energy. But also we are very active in reducing the emission from our landfill activity and the methane, and Vanessa explained how it is important to address and to reduce methane emission from waste management activity in landfills. And so we are extremely active. By doing so, we can generate carbon credits. that can serve other industry. We can also generate renewable energy that can help our industrial customers to switch to renewable energy, because once you capture landfill gas and you reduce the emission within your own waste management activity, you can recover this landfill gas into energy, into renewable energy, either electricity or biomethane, and this can help other industry to avoid emission in their value chain. And finally, we are active in developing carbon sinks, and we are very active in the development of biochar plant, which offers a long permanence carbon sink, with the addition of a lot of environmental co-benefits. So we can, thanks to biochar plant, we can convert biomass into valuable resources that has a lot of benefits and can contribute to restore soil and land across the world. So you can see that we are active in all three pillars: reducing emission, avoiding emission, developing carbon sinks. But this, we cannot do it alone. We can do it thanks to the development of public policy that are strong, incentivizing to a more circular economy and fighting climate change. But also we need the contribution of people who can support financially all this initiative. And we look at all the possible support from the carbon market. Green landfill activities can benefit from the voluntary market as well as biochar. And I hope I will have the opportunity to discuss it a little bit further. So that's it for me for the time being, Aditi.
Thank you, Marek. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll move on to our discussion part of the webinar. And here's when I encourage all of you to chat with us. There's a Q&A section as well as a messaging section. So just make sure you're doing it in the right place. Before I go into questions that I had prepared for the panel, I'm going to ask something that Bharat has written, and I think Vanessa, you might be well placed to answer it. He's asking, what is the competence of modern WTE plants to treat PFAS fractions? Comments, please. I'm sure, Peter, any of you can answer it as well. Vanessa, I give the floor to you first.
Yes. So some studies are. Sorry. Yes, some different studies are ongoing to analyze how PFAS are treated in waste-to-energy plant. What is known as far as today is that we still observe a PFAS contamination in the output of waste-to-energy, so in the water, in the ashes, in the flue gas. The concentration observed are nevertheless really low. What is difficult as far as today when we speak about PFAS is that there is no standard of measurement. There is no quantification standards of PFAS. It's really a new subject. So what we are trying to clarify is that what we know is that PFAS is destroyed at strong temperature. So we know that there is a destruction through combustion process. But what we really need to know is input versus output. So there is an ongoing study that we are financing in Germany now, where they will add to the treatment of the waste to energy in input something whose they know the composition when it comes to PFAS, and they will look at the influence in the output. This will enable to really have a clear vision of the ratio of input versus output. Because so far, all the studies have been able to measure what is in the output, but if you have no comparison with what is in input, there is no conclusion to be made. So some studies say that waste to energy is really a solution because there is almost nothing. Some solution will concentrate on, but it's still too much. The only way to have a result is to compare carrot with carrot. So the study is ongoing, is really scientifically based, it's financed by the Environmental Ministry in Germany, and the first result should come, the first study is today, to be honest, the first campaign, so we'll have the first results, I think, before the summer. But it will run over 2 years, because they will look at different PFAS. You have 16,000 PFAS, for information.
Yep, exactly. Thank you. Thank you for that comprehensive answer. I just saw another question coming in. Should we go for that? Or Peter, if you'd like to add something to the discussion, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to take this question. Somebody is asking, Isabel is asking, one of the main barriers in developing countries or low-income countries is access to technology, both in terms of operation and cost. Also, these same countries do not have representative emissions globally. They are non-Annex 1 countries. So how do you address these solutions for the global south? Any of you? I think all of you can answer this. Corinne, maybe?
Sure. And maybe Malik can also complement afterwards. Actually, the waste to energy is a great solution in some contexts, but it's also a very expensive energy production in comparison with other sources. So it all has to be put back in the context in which it is proposed. In many places where you don't have the financial resources to invest in that, or the technical competencies, a waste sector that might not be fully well structured, where you don't characterize your wastes fully, or the waste streams are not fully known. Environmentally sound management of waste is also a landfill, engineered landfill that is well managed with state-of-the-art practices, and methane capture is a very good solution. So in our advocacy, we really put these two technologies as two options that are adapted to different contexts, and that really needs to be looked at in the specific situation of each country. And as is said in this comment, indeed, in the countries where we have a lot less data, I would approach with a lot of care waste to energy project as meaning the incineration with energy recovery project, because the technology requires good data. But maybe Malik, you want to complement, or?
Yeah, I would like to say I totally align with you in terms of there is no one solution that fits all, okay, clearly. So sometimes energy from waste might be the solution. Methanization of bio-waste might be another, and sometimes landfill as well. So, but I would like to point out that sustainable management of waste in landfill is not a solution that is not technological. And more and more in emerging country, we propose to recover massively the methane that is generated from the waste that is landfill, and then you can produce electricity and even biomethane that can be injected into the grid. So I would like to point out that this is not that's technological. A landfill also is a technological infrastructure that needs a lot of engineering if you want it to be properly done, and if you want to recover all the potential from the waste, because waste is a resource. So that's what I wanted to point out. And then the barrier to go from one technology to another, for me, it's always the same. The first barrier is from a regulatory point of view. We need to make sure that in emerging country, there are sound, comprehensive framework that incentivize the actors to send the waste to where it will be properly treated and considered and treated as a resource rather than a waste.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Malik. Both of you answered very comprehensively, and I think everyone's aware that methane is only produced when organic waste is broken or not broken down, and basically in the absence of oxygen. So if you can just keep away the fraction and not send it to any dump site or landfill, you're already solving half the problem, but I'm not speaking today. So the other questions I see here, is there a world standard or decision guide to help developing countries to make their decisions on the environmental sustainable management choices, investments that they need to make? And let me give both questions together because there are two of them. Can you also comment on why methane oxidation has not been considered for carbon credit purposes to finance waste management practices or projects? Does anybody have a preference as to which one they want to take?
I can say,
Malik,
I
yes,
believe
go ahead.
methane oxidation is something that is eligible for carbon finance to generate carbon credits, but I think it's rather used at the end of the life of the landfill, you know, when you have only a residual fraction of methane that is still generated, and then there is no much sense to send it to a landfill gas engine to produce electricity, you know, because the amount is too small, and then you can consider oxidation as an option. So it could be an option, but I still believe that it's very efficient to convert the landfill gas into biomethane and to inject it into the grid, which is the most efficient solution at the beginning. And when you reach residual level, then we can start talking about oxidation of methane. But let's start with the big bulk. We have so much to do, really capturing the big bulk of the methane that is generated by landfill. And then when we arrive at the end of the life of the landfill, when we get there, if we have done the first part, we'll be already very happy.
Good answer. Thank you. Vanessa, then Corinne.
Yeah, just to complement to the former question, something we didn't address in the answer. A really important point is how to motivate people who don't have measure of emission, neither own objective, to tackle their emissions. And that, I think there is a really important financial tool beyond in carbon finance, which is bilateral agreements under Article 6. And they are meant for that. I mean, because the principle of bilateral agreement is that country we do have objective in terms of decarbonization path can benefit from decarbonization project realized in emerging countries and would decarbonize for instance, you will decarbonize a country in Africa, but this country does not have any objective in terms of decarbonization of its emission in this industry. And then it can sell to one of the country in Europe its carbon credits. And it can sell to a really good price, a lot higher than voluntary carbon market. We are at $3 on one hand, and we are over $20 on the other hand. So it's really, it can be a game changer to implement really more technological, proven technologies in emerging countries and make them affordable. So it's really a key instrument that should be enhanced during COP30 and which has already been enhanced during COP29 through Article 6.4.
Aditi, if you let me add something to what Vanessa just said, I really advocate for, I think, the cooperation approach under the Paris Agreement, you know, they are really an opportunity. Not only Article 6.4, which is the centralized crediting mechanism, that is the new CDM, if you want, but also the Article 6.2, which is the bilateral approach. But in both cases, I really advocate for public authority to let private actors to propose projects, you know, and to enter into discussion with potential buyers on both markets, you know. Let the initiative of the private actor to offer, to propose project, and not for this project only to be initiated by the public authority. I think that's something that has been mentioned. We need the action of everybody, public, private, NGO, and we need to push all in the same sense, but let the energy from private entities to propose innovative projects and to seek agreement with under these cooperation approaches and market approaches that are allowed now since the last COP. And now it's clear that it's a way to go to find new source of revenues.
Thanks, Malik. We did discuss this at some sessions at the COP28 as well as the COP29 pavilion And I'm sure it's going to be a big discussion in Belém as well. Corinne, and then there's a question from Sandra in the chat box as well. Maybe you want to answer that? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to answer the question from France about the decision guide. I recently looked into the playbook that RMI put together and launched last year, the waste management playbook, and I recommend looking at it just as one resource that could be a good one to think about the stepwise improvements towards reducing methane emissions. And I also want to say a quick thing about this whole discussion about carbon credits. Another discussion that's happening also between a few of us and that we've started raising in the climate change group also within ISWA is that waste management is currently assessed by the IPCC frameworks as any other industry. It's like we're an industry producing chairs or producing trucks or whatever. Whereas the waste industry is actually dealing with the consequences of other industries, of other users. And so we are a service to others to start with, even though we're evaluated the same way as any other industry. And so one of the things we'd also like to start as a movement or a reflection over the next probably few years, because things are not going to change so quickly, but how to better assess the benefits, the global climate benefits of waste projects, rather than look at just what's happening in the system boundary of the waste management system, but how does it benefit the global climate crisis.
Yeah, and that's what we did try to do well, it was a very short paper that we wrote together with Professor Wilson, Peter and us. Yeah, that's the one you're talking about. Good. I have one question. Perhaps, Vanessa, you want to take this. It's from Sandra. It's about how can modeled methane emissions using IPCC models be compared to methane emissions observed by satellites when satellites only give one data point at a time and have other limitations as well, like cloud cover, and then they cannot measure methane and so on and so forth. So how do you assess them and compare them?
Hello, Sandra. So, satellite measure, it has been, I think, over 10 years that it has started to raise. And I agree, the post-processing is a key issue, but you have more and more expertise on that. And we have read lots of, we have been through lots of articles about satellite measurements, and the campaign, some campaign, like on Madrid, GHGSat did, I think, 49 measures, and they reached an estimation that they assess as presenting only 10% of uncertainties. We still believe that this is more than 10% because each of these measures were not done in the same meteorological, neither atmospheric conditions. And the uncertainties in satellite measure are mainly due to meteorologic and atmospheric. The only way to bring more certitude would be to have a study, as far as I'm concerned, putting in balance satellite measure, on-ground measure with tracer gas instrument, and models using really a strong knowledge of waste characterization. Just for your information, I worked on Casablanca project, and we had invested in a 100 case study to really have a strong characterization of the waste, because we designed the plant, and so we had a really strong knowledge of the waste. And depending on the humidity, depending on the organic, it's really small criteria can impact so much the result when we measure methane emission that it's obvious that using of IPCC model with assumptions on waste composition and on parameters can bring to huge errors. That's what I could observe in the study I did on Casablanca. So what we want to present at COP30 is we have been financed by European Space Agency, and we are working with Harvard and I hope with other experts, but Harvard is really expert in post-processing of satellite measure, to try to start a campaign on using on-ground satellite and modeling, but only on 2 or 3 identified landfills. So, but it will take at least 1 to 2 years, I think more, to be honest. So we got a subsidy to design the study, but the goal is to try to reduce the uncertainties due to satellite and to help them to help. I think what they can enable is to a better fine-tuning of the models. That's what I think we can get at the end. To answer your question, sorry, it was a long answer.
That's fine, and we've come to the end of our session timing at least, and I don't want to keep everybody much longer. I'm sorry I never got to the questions that I had prepared for you, but it was a lively discussion. What I want to say to the participants, firstly, I want to thank all of you to having joined us, but I just want to say this is a road to COP. So the next 6-7 months, you're going to see us, come back and have these kind of discussions again and again. And we hope that you participate. We've seen already the kind of interest that we've been getting from our partners and ISWA members and so on this particular topic. So I invite you to join ISWA. I also invite you to write to our membership manager to understand what we're doing for the pavilion at COP30. And this time we're going to take everybody's feedback. Vanessa, you can be sure we will try our best to be at the Blue Zone. With that, I would like to thank all the speakers. Thank you so much for your time, for your insights, and for your updates. And we will continue this conversation. So it's not a goodbye, but just the bye from the first road to COP30. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, Aditi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aditi. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.